Pyrotechnics, automation, magic tricks, special effects. Broadway shows are getting bigger and bigger. But what does it take to call a show that has so many potentially dangerous scenic elements? My name is Kent, and this is your half-hour call.
Hello, company. This is the half-hour call, half hour till the top of the show. If you haven't signed in, sign in now. Half hour.
What is up, my friends? I was fortunate enough to get to chat with director and stage manager Matt DiCarlo about exactly what it takes to put on a big show. As the production stage manager for The Play That Goes Wrong in Beetlejuice on Broadway, Matt is no stranger to dangerous technical elements. And stick around till the end of the video where Matt will share with you exactly what you absolutely must know before jumping into shows with these dangerous elements. But if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Kent, and you are watching Half Hour Call, where we're dedicated to shining the spotlight on technical theater. So if you want how-to videos, interviews with industry leaders like you're watching right now, and general theater updates, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video. But that's enough of me, let's dive right in. Well, hi Matt, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to get to talk to you.
I am so excited to be here all the way from Seoul, South Korea. So thanks for having me.
So today we're going to chat about what it's like to work on huge shows. You're working on the Korean production of Beetlejuice right now as the restaging director. First, how did you become a stage manager, and when did you know that it was what you wanted to do?
Yes, I when I was growing up as a young kid, certainly, and as an early teen, I thought I wanted to be an actor. I went to, summer camp, studied theater there. I did all the school shows. I took dance classes, voice classes, all of that. I was really focused on being a performer. It wasn't until high school that I ever looked at the other side of sort of the business, of the industry, of the art form. I broke my leg in high school and couldn't perform in the spring musical, so fell into being the student director of that show, and I loved it. I loved being, on the opposite side of the proscenium, being able to be part of the process, deeply inside of it, but also outside of it. My high school didn't have really a stage manager that functions in the way that stage managers function professionally, so I didn't really learn about what a stage manager did until I was in college. When I was applying to schools, I really sort of honed in on theater production as a major. I focused at Rutgers in stage management, and also, sort of drove forward my passion for directing. I sort of was pursuing both of those things equally. Social media, the internet, things weren't as available to us then as they are today. So I think today it's really, it's easy to find out about a Broadway production stage manager. What do they do? Who are they? How do you get in touch with them? That's all easy now, way easier than it was before. And so a lot of what I was doing was like digging through playbills I had, trying to figure out who was doing certain jobs and how they got where they were. And I really fell in love with the idea of being the production stage manager of a Broadway musical.
So what was your first big show in terms of technical elements, and how did you kind of approach that?
I was really fortunate in the sort of second half of my college career, and then as I sort of ramped into the industry professionally, all of my early experience was at Paper Mill Playhouse in New Jersey. And high, sort of big scale, large shows is what Paper Mill does well. And so early on, I was, a production assistant and then an assistant stage manager once I got my equity card on shows with automation and big cast shows with swings and understudies, and rehearsing at New 42nd Street Studios, teching the show at Paper Mill, running the show for 5, 6, 7 weeks, however long it ran. But that is where all of my early experience was. My first Broadway show was actually smaller scale than a lot of the shows that I had already done at Paper Mill.
Right, because your first Broadway show was Rock of Ages, right?
Yes, I started with Rock of Ages when it was off Broadway at New World Stages. And Rock of Ages is, it is a show that is big in its impact, but certainly is not a show that has automated scenery. It has a pretty, a small cast size as far as musicals go today. After doing Cinderella and Carnival and The Full Monty and Meet Me in St. Louis and Little Shop, doing all these shows at Paper Mill that were big in terms of their technical designs, Rock of Ages was a departure from that.
So for someone who perhaps doesn't necessarily come from a background of big shows with those big technical elements, what do you see as kind of the most common mistakes or pitfalls that people kind of run into when they're transitioning from perhaps something that's more like Rock of Ages to something more like a Little Shop or a Beetlejuice?
It's a great question, and I talk with my students a lot about it. I think, the bigger shows get, the more complex designs and physical productions become, the more there is to stay on top of, the more there is to track, the more there is to know, the bigger safety comes into play. And as an early career stage manager, when you're learning about how that works, how automation works, how do flying automated pieces of scenery and deck automated pieces of scenery play together. As you're learning about that, as you're learning what that tech process is like, what working with union stagehands on bigger musicals is like, as you're learning all of those things as an early career stage manager, don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer if you don't know something. I, as a PSM, sometimes say I don't know, and I have no shame about that. No one should pretend to be an authority on something they're not, and we certainly wouldn't ever want to put any aspect of people's safety or of the production or of a piece of paperwork, however big or small what we're doing is, as we're sort of looking at the bigger picture of that big show, we should never be afraid to say, can somebody explain this to me again? Or I don't understand how this works. And also, advice I always give to early career stage managers or people who are transitioning into another arena is, don't think you know everything. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. We're all still learning. We learn on every project we do, and we certainly learn a lot. Good, bad, indifferent. We learn a lot when we switch gears and do a different kind of show than we're used to doing.
And it kind of plays against your instinct. At least as a stage manager, I feel like everyone kind of expects you to be the authority on the show. So having that moment to be vulnerable and say, I don't know, I feel like can sometimes be counterintuitive, but I think that's so smart to say that that's the answer to avoiding those pitfalls.
Yes, for sure. I think saying I don't know, but I will find out. I will get the answer, and also in order to lead the company, in order to be the authority on the show, I think it's important to really understand everything and to not fake it. And that's like the biggest advice I can give to someone who is transitioning into the larger scale shows. There is a lot that comes with mounting a production like Beetlejuice, or even like something, that's smaller but has a lot of elements to it, like The Play That Goes Wrong. There's a lot that comes with that. And certainly early on in my career, even making the jump from Paper Mill to Broadway, there were so many things that are impossible to learn in a classroom, impossible to learn until you're actually in the space with the stuff and the people doing it. And so be okay with that. Lean into the fact that you have room to grow.
I love that. What's been your favorite stunt, effect, tech element, anything on any show you've worked on? What's been, if you had one that just kind of really sticks out as, oh, this was always fun to call, or this was fun to get working right in tech?
It is such a good question. And I always struggle with what was your favorite blank? What was your least favorite blank? What was I think it's so hard. In this instance, I think the example I will use, because I have so many, but there was nothing quite like the experience of calling the second act of The Play That Goes Wrong, and knowing that within milliseconds, like the timing with which scenic effects or prop effects or sound cues were triggered and executed completely transformed the response from the audience. And knowing that, you know, I would flick a cue light, say a go, and something would happen on stage and the audience would erupt in like show-stopping laughter, knowing that you had to be so inside the show, breathing with the actors, feeling like you're part of it, knowing that the decisions you're making are getting laughs, you know, that there was nothing like that experience. And even though I have called shows with more complicated special effects sequences, that particular experience working on that show from that perspective was singular and unlike anything I've done.
So we talked a little bit about how I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer, but on the other side of that, what's something that someone absolutely needs to know before doing a show in any PA, ASM, PSM with these kinds of complicated elements? What's something that they should make an effort to learn about before going into it?
I'm going to go with this. I'm going to sort of take it like a little bit around the corner, and rather than list, you know, the technical things that people should know and study, I'm going to say that in order to do these big shows, you've got to know how to communicate with people. You have to, your communication skills, your organizational skills, and the way that you disseminate and receive information have to be at peak level. That is huge. It makes all the difference in the world. Teching Beetlejuice the Musical is no easy feat, and we spent weeks and weeks putting that show together in the theater, and it was one of the most joyful tech experiences I've ever been through. And I attest that to the fact that I felt like the entire team and everyone on both sides of the proscenium were like communicating at the highest, best frequency. And that means communicating about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and, you know, keeping everybody in the room during tech posted. It also means communicating as you ramp up for tech, making sure everybody's on the same page about every single moment and every element, making sure that everybody understands the way tech is going to run, setting clear goals, keeping yourself upbeat, optimistic, positive, focused, clear, concise, and also communicating about safety. That is the second part of this, that you must be able to put the safety of everybody in the building first. It's hard to tech big musicals like Honeymoon in Vegas, Beetlejuice, you know, anything like that. Any big show on Broadway, a Wicked, a Aladdin, The Lion King, you know, I could go on and on. It's hard to be the person sitting at the driver's seat for days and hours and weeks, and it's hard to be the person with the headset backstage who's communicating on behalf of everybody in the front of the theater. There's so much involved there, and you've got to be able to put people's safety first and make that the most important thing. And you've really got to be ready to be like the best version of a communicator that you can be.
Do you have any specific examples of that, like a moment where you felt like, oh, communication really helped us solve this problem or helped us do this in the way that you were just talking about?
So, you know, Beetlejuice we can use as another example here. For people who have seen that show, it really did and does take the work of almost every design department in every moment that gets executed in an exciting way. There's a moment where early in the show, two characters fall through the floor because they are they're in an old house that needs repairing, and the floor breaks underneath them and they fall through to the lower level of the house. And it is a scary thing for two actors to step onto something and know that they're going to fall through, you know, 4 feet below onto a crash mat that's on a lift that lowered up beneath the deck while they were performing another part of the scene. And it took the care of our movement consultant and Alex Timbers, our director, and Connor Gallagher, and me as the PSM who was making everything move, and the lighting designer and the sound designer and the special effects coordinator who was making sure that the fog was coming up the right way and not in the actor's way, and that everybody could see what they needed to see. And that is, moments like that are, there's like one of two ways it can go. You can really, really prepare, and you can step through it methodically, clearly, make sure that everybody at every moment feels comfortable with how you're going to attack the moment next, what you're going to do next, what protocols are in place, what do we do if this doesn't happen, what do we do if that doesn't happen, and making sure that the actors feel completely comfortable at each moment that you're going to do something surrounding a moment like that. And that is something at Beetlejuice that I do feel like, because we all communicated so much about exactly what was going to happen with every single element of that effect, we were able to move through in the technical process with care and finesse. And had we not been as laser focused on communicating and making sure that everyone was always on the same page about that, we wouldn't have been able to do that way, and it probably wouldn't be executed as cleanly and as effectively as it is. And that is true of so many moments in so many shows, right? That is one example of like great communicating made this moment great and made the process of creating the moment great. And of course, there's always the stuff you can't plan for too. You can plan every plan B, C, D, E, F, G, from now till the end of time. And all of a sudden you're going to need a new plan. And what I have found is the more that we communicate all the time about everything in a clear, concise way, the easier it is to actually think on our feet and think quickly, because we're all speaking the same language.
It's neat to think about, because sometimes there are shows that I've been a part of where it's like nothing is really dangerous technically, so they're just like, just see what happens, just go for it. And I feel like knowing when that's an acceptable frame of mind and when it's absolutely not an acceptable frame of mind is something that's super important.
Yeah, agreed.
So is there any other advice that you'd like to share with the stage managers of tomorrow? I'm sure there's so much that you like to share with people, but if you had to sum it up.
Yeah, be the most well-rounded stage manager you can be. And I mean that both within the art form of theater and not. Make sure that you know as much about as many aspects of the industry as you can, as much about the art form as you can possibly soak it in. I also think, this sounds like a Hallmark card, and I apologize for that, but I mean it, is be a light in the room. Show up for yourself and for the show, and know that people want to collaborate with people who they like collaborating with. Stage managers are a completely interconnective part of the process, and we work in the process, in the room, not for the room. And in order to claim that space, we have to show up operating from a place of collaboration, operating from a place of yes, operating from a place of clarity, and being warm, right? We want to be approachable. We want to be, like we talked about earlier, we want to be the people who are the leaders in the space. And in order to do that, I think you really need to show up and be a light. I mean, again, it sounds cliche, but I think it's true.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for being here today and for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. My name is Kent, and this has been your half-hour call. Find the perfect gift for the stage manager in your life at the Half Hour Call store. Now with free shipping on all domestic orders. New products added frequently. Visit KentJamesCollins.com/store to shop now.